Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's episode of Associations Now Presents, an original podcast series from the American Society of Association Executives. I am Brittany Lampfort, Senior Marketing Manager at Croftfuel. We are recording today from ASAE's MM&C conference here in Washington, D.C., where association professionals from across the industry are gathering to share ideas, build connections, and explore what's next for the community. Today, we are so excited to welcome Ann Handley, the world's first Chief Content Officer, best-selling author, and CCO of Marketing Profs. She just delivered the keynote address on the first day of this conference, so we are going to ask some questions. The first question I have for you is, where did you get your suit? This is amazing. If you were watching from home, you have to look at this suit. It's one of the best.
So you're asking, who am I wearing?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here with all of you, be here with you. So who am I wearing? Today I am wearing Alice and Olivia. And I'll tell you, my biggest stress today was not even the keynote. It was, do I include the bow?
I love it.
Or do I peek off? It's detachable. The bow was the grace. So I don't know. I went for it. And I like the way it kind of waves around on stage a little bit. When you also prancing around. So it looked great.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
Oh, yeah, I guess questions now.
Who are you? Help us, give a quick introduction of who you are, help the audience understand who we're talking with today.
So obviously Ann Handley, Chief Content Officer, Marketing Profs. I've been in marketing for 1 million years, about 1 million dog years, so it's like 1 million plus years. So I founded a company called ClickZ ages ago, which is one of the first sources of digital marketing at a time when digital marketing was a sort of brand new thing. And from there, founded Marketing Profs, and I've written different books about marketing and content, particularly Everybody Writes, which is a Wall Street Journal bestseller. It's can translate into 19 different languages. The whole ethos of that is really helping marketers, not just content marketers, but all the marketers and all businesses really figure out how do we communicate in a way that's authentic and real and uniquely us. And honestly, that's a message that we need more than ever now in the age of AI. So yeah, author, entrepreneur, speaker, obviously. And yeah, just, friend of Ruby.
Yeah. So, and did I say you're also a dog mom?
Oh yeah, most important thing. Yes, yeah, my Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, his name is Augie. He is a stage 5 clinger. I love him so much, and he loves me just even more. He loves us just that. Do you have a dog?
I had 2. Yes. They're mutts. So one's a Terrier Brooder mix, and the other is a Pit Bull Terrier mix.
What are their names?
Archie and Pepper.
This is the information that you're here for.
This shade,
Pepper and Augie. Yes, remember that.
Keep that in mind. Yeah. Okay, so I am actually so excited to talk with you about all of the things related to the keynote.
Yes.
So MM&C is membership, marketing, and communications, and we also have tech as a part of this conference, right? So the marketing piece of things is so relevant to the audience that's here and the audience at home. So your keynote is about strategic decisions.
Yeah.
In this instant results world. We're so ready for things instantly, right? Yes. So for associations, we're under pressure to do more and move faster. Not always with poor resources. How do you decide what should move fast and what is okay to move slower?
Yeah, so that's such a huge issue right now. So here's the deal, so marketing, and I think business in general, has a sort of addiction to speed, right? And it's like we always want to go faster from a customer or from a member standpoint. We always want to move them from the first time they hear about us to signing up for us, faster and faster. It's very much the treadmill that we're on. And it's easy to say, oh, well, that's because of AI. Like AI has just tossed rocket fuel on that impulse. But the truth is that, marketing and business has always had this sort of addiction to speed. You can look at anything that we do. It's like we always think that faster is better. And so my whole philosophy is that, with my experience of being in marketing for, 25 years, is that faster is not always better. And that I'm challenging the convention that, that we need to always think about the fastest way to do things. Because sometimes the fastest way is not the best way. And so in answer to your question, the idea of like, when should we move fast and when shouldn't we? I mean, that's essentially what my whole keynote unpacked. And it comes down to to a couple of things. Number one, how we're measuring marketing, how we're measuring the impact that we have. And I think we need to think about it a little differently because a lot of marketing is measured according to, very specific metrics that get results, how fast we were able to do something, did people click? Did they download? Did they join? Did they renew? And yeah, all that is important. There's a lot of other smaller signals before that I think if we pay attention to can start to inform the very question that you asked, like when do we move fast and when do slow? So to give you a really specific example, one of the things that we don't look at enough in marketing is not the sugar rush metrics of those sort of, did they do this or did they do that or did they act? But before that, like the emotional resonance of it, are we connecting with people that we want to connect with? Do they feel inspired by us? Not just like, do they want to buy, but what kind of language do they use? And so in the keynote today, I shared a framework for how do we sort of move away from the sugar rush metrics of marketing and into something that's more substantive that measures the resonance on our programs. And by the way, I feel I need to mention this because I'm in marketing, but I have a new book coming out around this topic in February of 2027. It's called ASAP, as slow as possible, when to take the long road in a shortcut world. It's about this very topic of marketing, but also is broader than that because I think, especially where AI is encouraging us to, not encouraging us, like demanding in a lot of ways that we move faster. I think at the same time, the opposite is also true, right? That there are moments when we need to specifically step away from it, slow ourselves down and just say, okay, here's a situation that matters to us as an organization or that matters to you as a person. That was a long question.
I mean, that was a long answer. It's all right. There's so much to unpack there, though, too. And I think the other piece of it is there are certain things that are going to take time.
Yeah.
Right? So, and my background is marketing as well, so all this resonates so much with me.
Yes.
It's the slow game, right? So you want to go as fast as possible, but like you had said, you need to figure out how to make a message resonate with the audience. And sometimes that takes time.
Right. And the thing is, this is not anti-speed. Like, I love speed. Like, I'm addicted to it just as much as anybody else. And so it's not a slowdown all the time, but it's when speed becomes, the only point that we get into trouble. And so I think it's that distinction that you make. Like, yeah, sometimes do more, move faster, but sometimes know when to pull back, and knowing when through either permission or recognizing those moments is essentially, sort of what I've been kind of obsessed with lately. And honestly, I've been thinking about this for, no joke, 10 years. I first started talking about this at an industry event, 2060, Bay Stage. I talked about it. And I saw it then as very much of a marketing thing, like just content marketing specifically, around how we're creating content, how we're connecting with others, like how we're thinking about building audience. If I saw it then in a very tiny way. But the more that I started thinking about it and the more that I started seeing signals from elsewhere, and then AI comes in and throws rocket fuel on this whole situation. And I'm like, oh gosh, now is the time. So yeah, you could say I've been writing this book for 10 years. And I finally finally establish it.
These excited for it to come out.
I'm really excited too.
So one of the things you mentioned, and very way from one of the questions that I have next, you mentioned singles. Yeah. And again, that's another thing resonating with me because that's something that's been popular in the association space. Is like, what are some signals that you look for at the marketing so that it's that stand out to you?
So yeah, a couple things that I think sometimes they're very, very small as things too. For example, some signals that I think about, they sort of fall into three pockets. I guess I would call them. One would be, just sort of the impact that your book is having. Another thing is like the echo that it has, so the sort of resonance that it has. So just some very specific ways of thinking about these three, of these things differently. So one of them is just to get really kind of elemental and basic about it, would be looking at things like like a scroll depth on an email newsletter, looking at the response rate on an email newsletter, for example, or any of your programs or any of your assets. And by that I mean, is somebody literally hitting reply and writing back to you? Another way to think about the response rate is called what I call the OBR, OWVR, the Open to Write Back rate. That's specific to email, of course. And encouraging those conversations. Like, so an email newsletter becomes less about the news and more about the letter, more about how do we actually connect with somebody? How do we actually build those relationships? Because the thing is, people don't decide to join or engage with you because they cared about you. They decide to join or engage with you because they feel a connection. And so I think it's important to surface those connections, and we don't do a great job in marketing of that now. Good news is that AI can help you surface some of those things. But yeah, that's a very specific example. Another is if you're looking at Echo, for example, how do we think about that? Like, what are the signals we want for there? Look at the language that your members or would-be members are using. Things like inspired, things like reassured, things like I feel smarter, some specific words that you hear in either your customer service or sales conversations or in when people write back to you. And by the way, this we're talking about this at, that's specific to the associations, but I do this all the time, right? Even as part of my whole email newsletter.
Yeah.
Like, I look for these moments because, the job of my newsletter is to not just sell stuff, or convince people that they should buy from me, but instead to sort of nurture that relationship. And so I think it's just thinking about your programs and your assets with in a different way, and to get away from that sort of the metrics matter, the basic metrics matter, but at the same time, think of them more broadly and sort of put the two together to get a fuller picture of how your programs are resonating.
Yeah, I like the echo effect. Yes, I think that. So prior to working in my careful of the vendors I know, but I worked for associations at the Chicago area, and one thing I've noticed associations get really stuck on is this idea of kind of talking in their own voice instead of leaning into the voice of the member.
Yes.
And there's so much power to that, because as you're talking about, people want to feel like they belong, they want to feel like they're part of something that is suitable for them. And one way to do that is to talk about your members. So yeah, instead of getting asked this really fancy, using jargon that they just don't use, how can you talk with your members in a way that you're speaking? And that's all about asking the questions, getting feedback from them in their own words, figuring out just having conversation to adapt.
Yeah, however, for sure. And I think there's easy ways to do that. A lot of times marketers or businesses say to me, yeah, but we don't have the staff to do that. We don't have the people to do that. And I'm just saying, look at what you're already doing. Choose those moments that are gonna resonate the most, that have that sort of echo quality to them. And as you say, just sort of tweak things a little differently. So using social media for itself. Maybe instead of having a post come from an association, because the reality is, no shame, but nobody wants to have a relationship with an association. They want to have a relationship with the people or
association.
Yeah. So, think about your director, executive director, your board, all of those people become, these sort of ambassadors for your message. Right? People like those, that is your front line. It's not on social, for example. It's not your association itself. And then using very human language.
Yes.
One of the things that I do a lot is I will post something on LinkedIn and I be right around me. Person to planet versus, yeah. Spoiler.
Real human being, yeah.
Just saying. And then I look to see in the comments, to your point, how are people talking back to me? What are they saying? What are they saying in a way that can inform maybe how I think about things? Not are they agreeing with me? I'm not talking about the people who just write great posts, right, or who wriggle comments with AI. Yeah, but the people who, just add comments in their own voice. And I look at not so much the substance of the comment, although I look at that too, but just the words they use, the languages, way they describe things. You can get a lot of sort of intelligence from that. And so, yeah, that's just a simple way of doing it. And the other thing I'd say too, to your point about, speaking in a more human voice, one of the easy things what I think associations can do is have your communications come from a person, like an actual person, and not just the association.
Yes.
Right down to be like small things, because signals, right? The email address that you use, it shouldn't be reply@association.com, right? Or even newsletter at association.com. It should come from Barbara or Philip or, Jasmine or anybody who happens to be like, give someone the role of hosting your newsletter is how I think about it, almost like an MC. And there's lots of evidence out there that, the more personal your newsletter is, the better it'll perform, it may resonate. And so just some simple things like that, and somewhat practical things that I think they do differently to inspire a deeper level of connection and ultimately convey.
Yes. And as someone with a large newsletter list,
Yeah.
I feel like that's good feedback for the people who ask.
I'm telling you, it's like people always say to me, like, I have about 51,000 people on my email list. And they're always like, how did you do that? It's like, yeah, I did that. I'm just my whole weird, like, nerdy self. And I just write to one person at one time is how I think about it. Because think about the person who's receiving your newsletter, right? They're not sitting in an auditorium full of people. So it's not like dear friends, it's dear friend. One person at one time. They're sitting on their couch, scrolling through their phone. They're sitting at their desk on Monday morning, maybe, whatever it is. But actually, literally picture them in your mind and think about the one problem or issue that you're trying to solve or solve.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it changes the way.
I love that. It's interesting you mentioned that one of the sessions tomorrow, I'm doing a session tomorrow, and one of the questions is like, how could you approach this communication?
Yeah.
If you had an association of one person, if you're speaking to one member, you probably wouldn't send an email from membership@association. Right. You'd send it from beneath that association. Right. I want to build that connection. And I think a really good takeaway for associations in this aspect would be so many associations have volunteers that they can lean onto. Like, these people volunteer actively, they raise their hand and want to be involved. You can lean on those people as you ask them to review communications or even build some communications so that you're speaking in the place spot of the
Right. Free. Or could you give, though, like a guest, and it could be, you have a guest editor like once a month or whatever. It's one of your members. It's a way to surface them and reward them for their volunteer. Like, you can have us help them with that. But yeah, I think there's lots of ways to do that. Pushback that I sometimes get is, but we're going to make like a superstar out of this one person, and like it'll be more their brand than our brand. And do not worry about that. I'm just like, I'm going to look right at you and I'm going to say, do not worry about that. That's not going to happen. The New York Times, for example, massive list, massive brand.
Yeah.
Their morning news, like a morning edition newsletter, comes from one person who writes a specific letter to me as I'm sitting on my couch, rolling through it, or in bed, or wherever I happen to still be, just looking at the day's news. And it's one person. It used to come from a guy named David Leonhardt, and he was when the New York Times made the shift in 2020, it was directly in response to the pandemic, because they felt like they needed to give a sort of human face at a time when we're all very disconnected. So yeah, 2020, they did this shit's the New York Times did, and they installed David Leonhardt as the MC or the host of the newsletter, if you will. David has since left. He's since gone on to do his own things, left the New York Times completely. I don't even know where he went. You know why? Because I didn't follow David Leonhardt. I'm there for the Times. And so, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You don't worry about it. You get it. Just don't worry.
The viewers, I think this segues into another question I have for you. So you highlight judgment and trust as the real keys to connection.
Yeah.
And what would you say are a few practical ways that associations can earn trust through their communications? Especially when one thing you will hear consistently from associations is that members tune out for messages because they're overwhelmed with this noise of everything else is going on, or this idea that even one specific association sends me too many emails as a member. So I think you've touched on it a little bit prior, of like send from a person rather than a department, or an organization.
Right.
What else? What other ways?
I mean, this is a little controversial, but send less, I think, no one is ever sitting around and thinking, God, I wish I had more email. Why don't I get more email? I need to sign up for more email newsletters. I need to sign up for more stuff. No one is ever thinking that. No, not once. And so, I think doing less with more intention is one way you do that. Like, obviously, there's a point where there is going to be diminishing returns. But I think we have this sense that this sort of treadmill that we've been on, well, we send 3 days a week. Look at your data. Look at what is actually resonating with your audience and lean into that. And so, maybe you don't need to send 3 times a week. Or if you do, maybe you reserve it for those moments when it's really important to text, important messaging. So I think send less. Like, I know Jay Schwedel said this year. He's your email guy. He and I don't necessarily agree on this 100% because I think Jay is like, just keep sending, just keep hammering. And I'm like, dude, I love you, but no.
So sorry, you gotta have that balance in life, right?
Yeah. Because again, I think if you're going to take the time to build those connections, like, you make your email newsletter and your email worth opening. And so that takes a little bit of time and effort. Like, for example, I send my own email newsletter every fortnight. That's every 2 weeks if you're not in the UK, which of course you're not. But every 2 weeks. And I don't use bi-weekly, by the way. Do you know why? Because bi-weekly means either, twice a week or every, it's like, what is that? What is her name? You're so broke. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So anyway, I said it every fortnight, which is every 2 weeks, a very specific word that means only that. And the reason I do that is because I don't have the capacity, just the ability to write more frequently than that. And that's true of the OK. And do you know what people say to me a lot of times on sign up? This is the other thing. Actually, this goes back to your question about, how do you build that connection?
Yeah.
I will finish my thought. I'll circle back to that. Sorry.
That's a mess. That's a mess. Forget Bessie. That's okay. It's the best way to view it.
So people write back to me and say, I appreciate the fact that you send every 2 weeks. Because again, you put on name your feel. So that's a big piece of feedback that I do tend to get. Again, like echo, right up looking for that. Like, okay, that's good. That means that my style was resonating. And 2 week cadence really fine. 4-night cadence totally fine. If you learn nothing else today, learn that fortnightly needs our love.
Learn that it means every 2 weeks. Exactly.
Now, what I was going to say to you is when you're asking about the ways that we can strengthen our relationships through email specifically, one of the things that I think is vastly undervalued is when someone does raise their hand, sign up for your email newsletter, they are giving over their email address. That is a moment where you will never have for opportunity to forge a stronger connection and is that person known in person. And so what do you do with that opportunity? 58% of brands out there, not just association, but all brands, send a welcome email, which is crazy. 58, like that's a huge opportunity. And I think what's important there, though, is don't just send a welcome email like, thanks for signing up, we appreciate you, and like Hamal Comma Association. I think instead, that's your opportunity to say, like, thank you so much for signing up, welcome. Either here's what to expect, here's what you expect, here's how often you hear from us.
Yeah.
And then one thing I'd like to do for you, and make it a super simple ask. Have them hit reply right back to you. Right at the beginning. And it can be something silly, like I have a colleague who has his own email newsletter who asks, what's your favorite restaurant in your city? And he literally keeps a database, www.city. He has restaurants together. That's a fun sort of question. But how do you not answer that? Like, if you got that email, you'd be like, I can tell them about Sunbreak, whatever your favorite restaurant is, W's or whatever. I have to just say that. My questions, or ask 2 questions. You sign in for mine, email newsletter, maybe you have a pleasure. Just so we can experience this.
Yeah, test it out. Test the best way.
I asked 2 questions. The first question is, how did you find me?
Yes. Why is that always good to know?
Yeah, it's really helpful because I like to know who is referencing my work, who is suggesting me. Maybe it's from, my talk here today, but maybe it's they just saw me randomly on LinkedIn. It sort of like helps me understand like who's recommending me and what kinds of people or how they're finding me. The second one is working and one is right. Exactly. Yeah. And then the second thing is, I ask them, what did you hope to learn here? So sometimes people will give me really insightful things that I can then build future newsletter editions around. But what did you hope to learn here? Super easy questions. And sometimes people are like, I don't know, I don't really need to learn anything. I just want to say hi. And I'm like, great.
Yeah.
So
We'll see what this is about.
exactly. So I send everybody that sign up, about 63% who get that initial welcome email from me specifically, open it. A smaller subset, maybe half that, so maybe 30%, something like that, write back to me directly and say, here's how I found you, here's what I hope to learn. And then this is key. I always write back to heads. I always say, thank you for telling me. I love Jay. I really appreciate the fact that Jay is recommending me.
Yeah.
And then I say, but thanks for letting me know what we hope to learn here. Super simple. Do I have that automated? No, I do not. Could I? Yes, I could. But I don't want to. So this is, again, one of those as slow as possible moments, because it's more valuable for me to understand, who's recommending me and to start that relationship with a specific subscriber. And I'll tell you, Brittany, like, people are always blown away. I can't believe you did that. Now, immediately, people here listening or watching might be like, we don't possibly have the bandwidth for that. Like, we don't have time for that. Here's what I do. I set aside a half hour a week, and I batch respond to all. Okay, I read them all, and I respond to them all directly. That's it. It's half an hour a week. Half an hour a week for, like, basically nurture my audience. And that, to me, is just a choice I made. It's worth it. You'd be surprised at how many people, will write back. It's not as big as a list. That's I need a lot of. See?
So, and for those who genuinely don't have the bandwidth of their silly rumors, there are systems that exist. It's incredible how relatable this is to something like Propule, that are like what I like about this email newsletter example is the onboarding for an email newsletter. So if an association has an email newsletter, the onboarding for that email newsletter is an opportunity to connect with the prospect, then learn more about what they like, then what they need, and what they're interested in to help them get connected to Blue right? You can also directly translate this into what a new member onboarding process looks like. Yeah, so when a new member joins, just like when somebody joins the e-newsletter list, most associations are very quick to be like, here are all the really great things that we do. I hope you'll do something with it. And our spiel is always, well, what if you just ask them the question and help the organization understand what are they looking to learn from what's most beneficial, and then you can build trust with each individual member in a larger scale, because you can then send them on a journey that we help automate the process if that's what somebody would choose to do, because if, again, it's at a larger scale. But there's so much power and there's so much benefit to really asking a single question, yes, and learning from them, and then, again, building trust based off and showing them a response that tells them, oh, we hear you, and here's how we can help you.
Yeah, and I think the key is ask a question that is stupid easy to respond to. That's like, don't ask them a hard question that feels like homework. Just not this stupid, dumb, like, fun question. Yeah, like, not that my questions about, how did you find me and what do you hope to learn? Like, those are solid questions. But it doesn't take a lot of, you can just write back and say, I don't know, I want to learn about association marketing. Like, great, yeah, talk about that like once a year. So,
Yeah, and then the response is, great, here's something directly relevant to what you're IE for.
Right, and that shows, yeah. And if you could actually build it out into more of sort of a nurturing linking path, right? Where you could say, like, oh, you're looking for this, like, here's a resource specifically for you. Yeah, I don't do that because I'm functioning at a different level where an association could absolutely be.
Yeah. And if you ever get to a point where you want to do that, we can do it.
Oh, yeah, but there we go. This is perfect. We turn this into a sales opportunity for me. For all of us. Everyone's involved.
So you also talk about communication, that all of these are really connected. So you talk about communication that helps members feel seen and valued and really eager to, right. So what does that look like in terms of, I guess we're getting specific to what we were just talking about, but what does like the tone look like? What do content choices look like? What channels are you using in a way that doesn't feel too fake or marketing,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any magic to this. I think you're probably already using the channels that you need to use. I think it's how you show up that makes all differs, right? And so, if you're using social, use it as a discovery channel, number one, but also using it as a way to show your voice, showcase your people, start that connection with a potential member or your existing members that will they would be part of your group or they will renew. Sort of keep that as an ongoing thing, or voluntarily whenever the conversion, the metric is. And so, yeah, I think it's just thinking through each channel and figuring out how do we use this more effectively. And if they're not working, like dropping that. You don't have to be everywhere. You just have to figure out ones that are resonating for you. The one that I wouldn't not use, is that right? You have widgets, right? Would be a
We could simplify that.
yeah, say no one. I know. It's funny to be in communication and just like, this is complicated on purpose. I wouldn't not use
Some does server. The emphasis of that.
because email for sure. Email is, you have sessions on email and advocacy. It's like, it is, I don't want to say I will die on that hill because I find such joy in email. It's just so weird enough to say, but it's so true. I hate that phrase, like die of this hill. Like I want to celebrate on that hill because email is actually, I want to live on it forever. I want to pitch a tent and have my dog there and yell the fire because it's a great anxiety all over people there. Email is an amazing channel and I think always will be. But I think that the thing is, most of us are not using it well. And so I can start anywhere. I would start there. And then secondarily, social as a discovery platform. Like I said, a lot of people are using social as conversion platform, and that's really where it falls apart. It's not a conversion platform. It's a way to get people to find out about your organization, to feel like they can know you, get to know you a little bit more, and then ultimately raise their hand to obtain something, to volunteer and to be part of your group if one married. But I think you don't want to. A lot of times, I think people use the social incorrect. Also, it's like it's really a way more obscure world or they else. Yeah, and then just everything else you're doing. If you like, just webinars or podcasts or whatever it is that you're doing, like always just look for those bonus to where you can add in these cue that elements.
And human touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think oftentimes people are saying like, well, email is dead now. And it's not. It's just that it's been used inefficiently. And so how do you use it in a way which you are still relevant? The messages that you're sending are still relevant.
Yeah. And exactly. And I think the thing that you need to keep in mind about email is that yes, I think email is 100% still relevant. But the bar has gotten a little bit higher for email because of AI. So, for example, we're already starting to see, some of us already have our inboxes managed by robots. Not everybody, but I think eventually that's kind of where things are headed. Where, what's going to happen is your email arrives in somebody's inbox, and a robot decides, based on the parameters that you set, but a robot will decide, if this gets your attention, this is something that I could just handle on my own, this autonomously. This is something I add to your calendar, whatever the case. But there's another level or layer between you and with the member or your existing member right now. And that's really important to be aware of, just the way the AI is changing the inbox specifically. And so you might think, well, that means that email is dead. Like, how can we possibly break through? Well, the thing is, you used to be about deliverability, like the metric used to be able to get into the inbox. Like deliverability was the big issue. Now it's really about selection. It's about someone choosing to hear from you, and that only adds pressure or adds opportunity. I should say not pressure. It's opportunity to all the things that we're talking. Having it come from a real person, making sure that you are connected one person at one time. And making it feel like, this is something that I want to hear from Red Nature. I want to hear from you or whatever. It only makes it more and more. Think about how personal and how inherently just emotionally unique. Yes. Yes, Buena.
Heck, we could go on for.
We can. What are you doing?
Let's see. Yeah, you're gonna just join this podcast series all the time. Okay, one last question because we had, we were just talking about it. Yeah, so this one's pretty relevant. What would be, I feel like some associations are still a little bit hesitant to jump on the AMPF. They're still trying to figure out what it means for membership and marketing and communications. So what would be a smart starting line for AI that still protects the human voice and then like the voice of the member, right? And what are some common missteps that you're seeing for people that are using AI?
So, I think that, okay, let's start with the missteps first, which kind of informs the rest of the question. But I think the worst thing you could do is to start experimenting with AI and having it write all of the communications for you and then editing it. I vehemently goes to that perspective for a few reasons. Number one, because we are in the communications business. We are creative, we are storytellers, we are communicators. And so the idea that you're going to outsource that skill that we inherently possess and have and have nurtured for so long to a robot, I'm completely just don't. Is it fast? Is it efficient? Yeah. But again, it goes back to our initial question here. It's like, that's not the point, right? So don't outsource those original first drafts. Any first draft that's important, don't outsource it to AI, number one. I see it all the time. Don't outsource any, even the first draft of a social post, of an email newsletter, of anything. Can it help you with like a landing page? Sure, like who care about that? But I think it's important to choose those moments when, it's smart to involve AI because it's faster and efficient at trying landing page like nobody's business. But also don't outsource those moments that are important moments of connection for you and your audience. So that's the first thing. In terms of first steps, getting on board, I think the best thing is to just play around with it, just sort of see what it can do for you. And then be very intentional about how you use it. Like saying no to AI is also an option. Not all the time necessarily, because it is truly useful. For example, the framework that you were just talking about, a few minutes ago. There's, AI can be very helpful at servicing some of the metrics for you. It's servicing some of those emotional moments and signals that were hard to get to before. In fact, in my keynote, I shared a prompt that you can use with AI and to sort of draw out some of these insights. That's an incredibly useful use of AI. About using generative AI, so that's like on the data side of things, but using generative AI to write for you, I think when it's important, Martina, it's important to saying no. So yeah, I think it's important to have a distinction. What are we using AI for? Are we using it for data? Are we using it for the generative AI, like for writing? Or are we looking for it, using it for forecasting? For forecasting and for data management, great use of it, like huge help. Especially in an event like this where, the technology can help you figure out how to do that. But on the generative AI end of things, like using it for writing or generating content, I'm not a fan, especially for the first draft. It's helpful after you write a first draft to then ask AI, would this resonate with somebody who is a would-be member who has this particular personality who's looking for this? How do you do all that? It's because you've been paying attention to all the other signals that you're getting. So I think it can be helpful there, how you tweak language, but I think just in terms of generating it full out, just powerful.
Thank you, Anne, for your time. Thank you, Owl. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode of Associations Now Presents. Join us each month as we explore key topics relevant to association professionals just like this, discuss the challenges and the opportunities in the field today, and highlight the significant impact associations have on the economy, the U.S., and the world. Thanks, everyone.